Olá, você quer saber como e por quem foi criado o primeiro software de CRM do mundo? Vem comigo! Olá, eu sou o Heverton Anunciação, consultor e escritor em CRM e experiência do cliente. Eu criei essa revista eletrônica Person of the Week para trazer semanalmente a história de importantes profissionais do mundo dos negócios e no setor de atendimento ao cliente do Brasil e do mundo. Antes de mais, eu quero te convidar para o quê? Se inscrever em nosso canal, ativar as notificações para você ser avisado semanalmente. Esta live, como vai ser feita em inglês, você pode assistir agora ao vivo ou depois no YouTube ativar as notificações, a tradução simultânea para você traduzir para o português, tá bom? Antes de mais nada, então, eu quero fazer uma apresentação. O nosso convidado hoje é o Mike Muhney. Let me bring... Mike Muhney, in January 2015, was recognized in the Forbes article as one of the 25 professional network experts to watch in 2015. He is best known as the co-founder and co-inventor of ACT, the software contact manager that created the category and the CRM global industry in 1987. He is from Chicago. He lives in Fort Worth, Texas. Muhney studied finance at the University of Illinois. He started his career as a salesman with IBM during the mainframe areas. He is also a writer. I bring his book, Who is in Your Orbit? I invite you to read this book. You can find this on Amazon. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Heverton. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And I apologize in advance for, unfortunately, not speaking Portuguese. Otherwise, I would.
No problem. First of all, I was apologize myself because I wrote many books about CRM, but I didn't put your article, your participation in my book. For probably in the next one, I have a pleasure to bring you acknowledgement for Brazilian or the worldwide culture. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let's start. Mike, you were born 32nd after midnight on January 1st of 1951. You were the first baby in the United States in Chicago that year. When you were a child or teenager, what was the expectation of yourself or your parents about your future career, profession?
That's a good question. I was born in a very poor family. We lived in apartments, third floor apartments in rough parts of the neighborhood where there were gangs. My father was a blue collar worker, started out as a carpenter apprentice. He later got out of being a carpenter, but I come from very humble roots. And so my expectations, to answer your question, Heverton, were really not that great. When I was in high school, the greatest expectation was I wanted to go to university, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but my father and my grandfather thought it would be a great thing for me to be a lawyer. So, okay, I'll be a lawyer, and I'll go to law school. I did graduate from the university with a degree in finance with honors. I was accepted to law school, but I had to work construction as a laborer to pay for my college education. I graduated with no debt. I had to sometimes skip classes and go back up to Chicago to work for a couple of days and bills. I never knew what it was like to have a day off. So now here comes time to graduate from university, 3 months in the future, go to law school. But in Chicago, which is a union town, there was a concrete truck driver strike. that strike lasted for almost a month, and I didn't work for a month. So now I could not afford to go to law school. And they settled the strike. I had to go back to working as a laborer. And a good friend of mine who worked at IBM came up to me and he asked me if I ever thought about going into sales. And I said, no, why? And he said that there was a job opening at his office in downtown Chicago, and he would make an introduction, but then the rest would be up to me. Back in that era, Heverton, in order to even have IBM talk to you, you had to take an IQ test first. And obviously I passed the IQ test, and
Great.
then I had 3 days of 2 interviews a day. Each interview lasted 2 hours each. So I had a total of 12 hours of being interviewed by 6 people. And obviously I was accepted into IBM, and I was part of a national all across America class of 66 students. And we were in training for 6 months. They taught us principles from day one that I actually used when I later, many years later, invented ACT that we'll talk about later. And to this day, I live by the principles that IBM taught me in business. I graduated near the top of my class. Out of 66 students, I graduated number 6. So I just made the 10%, top 10%, but I had a great career at IBM. And again, it was before there was even a PC industry. I know it's hard for people today, or many people, to understand that there didn't always used to be computers. No, there wasn't. There was paper. And then big corporations had mainframes. So I go back that far. I mean, you gave my birth date, so I'm 70 years old. And but I lived in the golden era of the beginning of the PC industry.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see about your father, because my father was the carpenter too. They did give me a lot of money, but give good education, good values to bring my own career. That the point. I think the carpenter, they provide us the good materials in your character and moral. Then we can build it ourselves. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was trained to be from the very beginning to pay attention to people, to respect people, and to work hard. And so all of those characteristics of my upbringing, obviously, I attributed to part of why the success later on, which included hard work and respect for other people. Those things never go away.
Yeah. Now I'm going to show something for our audience that they are going to watch it during the week. Just to contextualize the interview. The company Conductor Software was founded in 1986 in Dallas, Texas, by Pat Sullivan and you. We can see in the image the version 1 and 2 DOS version 3, 4, 5 Windows version, and actually initial release was made in April 1st in 1987, so 35 years ago. ACT, previously known as Seja ACT, is a customer relationship management software application designed for the manufacturing industry. The original name for the software was Activity Control Technology that automate contact tracking, before finally just using the acronym. The name of company was subsequently changed to Contact Software International and was sold to Symantec Corporation in 1993, who then sold it to Cirrus Logic, later renamed to Purchase Interact Commerce in 2001 through Best Software. Then this North American software division, SwiftPage, acquired it in 2013. Beginning with the 2006, the same revisit to ACT by Seja, later Seja ACT, and now we have the that since ACT has been purchased, used by 40 million people, it's still running, it's completely on cloud too. My question is, Mike, how was your eureka moment you decided most companies needed to software like ACT? It was because you were a salesman, but without the proper tool to manage your relationship, and how Pat Sullivan embraced this challenge with you. You you understand my point?
Yes, I have to give you a little bit of history before ACT, though, so you understand ACT better.
Okay.
Pat and I were best friends. We met because when we graduated from university, we moved into an apartment complex 2 doors apart from each other. And so he started his career in sales as a printer salesman, and I started with IBM. And so we had a lot in common, and we became best friends. We all, as the PC industry was born, and we were both selling for corporations, we always said to each other, wouldn't it be fun to have our own company? Wouldn't it be great to be in charge of our own lives and, get away from the corporate world? And so the day came where Pat worked at a computer store. Many people don't know this, but back in that era, there were computer stores like Computerland. I don't know what there was in Brazil, of course, but in America, Computerland, Businessland, Entree, MicroAge, to name a few, where CompuShop, where people had to go to a store to buy PCs and the software and, let's say, modems or all the accessories. Pat worked at a store like that. And people would come into the store and say, I'm a manager at Texas Instruments, and I need to buy 25 of these things called computers, and I need to buy some software and some modems, a few printers. Well, you had to configure that list of items. You had to and put it together and give a quote. So Pat learned Lotus Symphony and created a product called Quote Pro. And it was with that product that people started using in the store and other stores because it saved him time, and it printed out a quote that and the salesperson said, we'll stand by this quote for 30 days, whatever. Those prospects would go to a competitive store and say, well, I need to buy 25 computers, etc. How much is it going to cost? Oh, I don't know, maybe $50,000 or $60,000. Well, compared to the salesperson that had a piece of paper that said, this is the price and we'll stick to it for 30 days, you felt more confident. We made the salesperson look more professional and, as a result, be more successful. And salespeople are always about making money, right? That's what sales is. Right. It's the lifeblood of any company. So on the basis of that product, Pat and I finally said, we now can start a company and let's go sell this product all over America. And so we quit our jobs and we attempted to sell the product. We did sell some, obviously, but we also, through a friend of my brother's, a gentleman in Boston, Massachusetts, heard about us and he wanted to invest in us. So he invested $100,000. This is in 1985. Invested $100,000 for 7% of the company. And so that valued the company at that time at about $1 million.
Wow.
Well, $85,000 later, after spending $85,000 of that 100, Pat and I literally said to each other, this dog ain't gonna hunt. It's a failure. People don't want it. Here is the original ad that we took out in the computer papers to sell the product. So I know it's hard to see, but
oh my God.
It took a whole page to try to describe it. I later changed the name of the product to Margin Maker. So
oh my God.
there's a margin. Well, it failed. And so the angel, this was about the middle of June, near the end of June, 1985. One of the principles that IBM taught me, they taught all of our salespeople, was always call at the top, the very top, the CEO. Often you won't get to see the CEO. That person will delegate you down to see some lower level person. But that person knows that the CEO wants you to talk to this person. So again, one of the principles IBM taught, always calling the CEO, I called on the CEO of CompuShop, headquartered right here in Dallas, Texas. They had 54 stores across the country. That would have been a big sale, margin maker in each of those stores. He never bought the product, but he took a liking to me. In fact, this is a funny story, Heverton. When I first met him, I got to meet him because I developed a relationship with his executive assistant. Very professionally, very courteously, kind, very friendly, right? There was, again, a lot of principles that I haven't even talked about yet that IBM taught me. I applied. Well, she finally put me on his calendar. When I walked into his office, he stood up from his desk and he came around and he extended his hand. And while shaking my hand, he said, "How the hell did you get in here to see me?" Very arrogant, right? And he was taller than me. I'm 6 feet tall. He was a little bit taller. While he's still holding my hand, I said, "Mr. Patel, I know your executive secretary better than you do, and she let me in." And he laughed, and he took a liking to me. Okay, but we connected, and I gave him a demonstration of Margin Maker. He liked it. He said, "I do want you to talk to the purchasing department, see what they want you to do, but let me know how it's going." That was an invitation, and I took advantage of that invitation, and I stayed in touch with them. Okay. A few months later, when Pat and I said, "This dog ain't gonna hunt," we thought the angel investor is coming down from Boston in about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. He still thinks everything is good. We don't know what to do. Should we give him the $15,000 that we have left? And we came to the conclusion that that's what we should do. But I said, why don't we go talk to Mr. Patel? His name was John. He actually obviously let us start to call him John. Let's go ask for John's advice. He's the CEO of a big company. Maybe he has another idea. So we went and talked to John, and we told him Margin Maker is dead. We told him why it's dead, that we explored everything to do. And he sat there and just listened to us. And this is what he then said, Heverton. He said, "Look, you two guys are smart guys. Why don't you take a 4-hour brainstorm breakfast on July 4th, obviously a holiday in America, and see if you can come up with another idea before you throw in the towel, and then enjoy the rest of the day with your families." Well, okay, we could still afford coffee and toast. So Pat and I literally were in a hotel restaurant booth at 8 o'clock with pencil and paper. And we said to each other, no matter what, we're going to sit here for 4 hours and see if we come up with another idea. And we kind of what we said, let's set some ground rules. Number one, whatever we come up with, if we can come up with something, whatever it is, it's got to have useful use. We knew what that meant. It had to be real. It had to be helpful. It couldn't be just a lot of stuff hoping that people would use it. It had to be valuable. And then we said, number two, it's got to be something that we ourselves would want to use. Okay,
Great.
well, that kind of helped us. And sitting right on the table next to us, Heverton, were our paper calendar books, daytimer. I don't know what they call them in Brazil, but daytimer.
Daytime
okay,
calendar.
A daily, and so as we're looking at that, we said, you know what? As good as those are for organizing, they organize activities. And all of those activities are really about and for and with people. So rather than have a focus on activities, why don't we take that kind of organization and devote it to a better relationship view? So it's about the relationship that has a lot of activities rather than activities that were for a lot of people. And 4 hours later, this is the original napkin. This is what we came up with, what we were scribbling at that breakfast. And by the time we left at noon on July 4th, 1986, we knew we were onto something. We were so excited, and I codenamed it YES, which stood for, because IBM is all about acronyms, right? It's the code name was YES, and it stood for Yes, Everybody Sells. I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a preacher, shoe sales, it doesn't matter what you do. everybody sells. And I would talk to like accountants and lawyers, and they would say, I'm not a salesperson. I have salespeople in my company, but I'm not a salesperson. And I would say, let me ask you a question. Do you have competition? Well, yeah, there's another architect firm down the street or another law firm. And, that means that I have choices. That means I get to pick, and whoever sells to be better, I'm going to choose. So yes, you are a salesperson, whether you like it or not. So our concept was never simply just for salespeople. It was the broad picture of everybody was a salesperson. Everybody.
Great.
Okay.
It is very. Sorry.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Here's the rest of the story. So we wanted to now design this product as much as we could, and this is again all on paper in that era, before the angel investor came down, so that we could tell him we came up with another idea after we were going to have to tell him that his investment failed on Margin Maker. Okay. So that was the original napkin. And here I taped together 4 pieces of graph paper, and here is the decision tree.
Oh my God.
That was the site plan. Okay.
Great.
Now that we had the site plan, we started to design every screen. Everything had its own design. I know you can't see it here, but this is the architecture of the product.
Oh my God.
Then we had to design the main screens of the product. So these were the designs, right? You see the code name. There's the code name. Yeah. And so we continued the process. So then the angel investor, his name was also John McNair out of Boston. John McNair came down, and we picked him up at the airport. We took him to lunch. And after we were done eating, we said, John, we have some bad news, but we have some good news. Well, what's the bad news? We said, Margin Maker is dead. And we told him why. And he was a very calm guy, thankfully. And he said, well, what's the good news? And we said, well, we came up with another idea, and we wanted to share it with you. And we showed him all this stuff, and we answered his questions. And this is what he said when we were all done. And we were, we didn't know. He could say, I'm done. I'm upset with you guys. You wasted my money. Yes, give me my $15,000 left that you have back in the bank. That's not what he said. This is what he said. You know what? I like that idea better than Margin Maker. Do you need any more money?
Oh my God.
We Pat and I both said, well, yes, we do. And he said, how much? And we just said, now he had invested 100,000. So we thought, well, Pat and I both immediately said, without talking to each other, there was no planning, right? We said $50,000. John McNair opened up his sport coat, pulled out his checkbook, and wrote us a $50,000 check at that lunch.
Oh, great.
And it was like, wow, we have so he went back to Boston the next day. I went back to John Pertell, the guy that said, go have a brainstorm breakfast July 4th and see if he can come up with another idea. I told John Pertell, I hadn't talked to him for a month now. John, we took your advice. We had the breakfast. We came up with an idea. It's called Yes. We know it all about it. We took John McNair to lunch, and guess what? He liked it so much, he wrote a $50,000 check. And this is what John Pertell said. You know what? I like that idea too. In fact, I have 2 other friends that might like to also look at this as an investment opportunity. Why don't you pull together an evening that you can come to my house? I'll have the 2 other friends of mine there, and you guys show them what you got. So Pat and I went to his house later that week in the evening. We talked all about it. We showed him the architecture, and at that house that evening, those 3 guys wrote us $400,000 in checks.
Oh, great.
And that is how what later became ACT was born. Pat and I did not give up. We humbled ourselves. We sought advice. We took that advice. We just had this determination to just don't give up. Now, if we couldn't come up with an idea, obviously some things don't happen. But at this point, we just didn't want to give up. We so wanted to have our own company. We so wanted to work together. And we just believed in people. Again, we were salespeople. And the whole world runs on the quality of relationships. It's a natural thing for us.
Yeah. Oh my God! Because you see, you believe you empath were believing something, and then appear John as an angel for your opportunity. It's great history. I didn't know about this. For congratulations for this background. Oh my God, it changed everything because you almost all decide to quit. No, we are not going to quit. Let's make this brainstorm, then decide a new warm up. I think I didn't know if you have read a book called The Back of Napkin.
I have not.
I'm going to send the link. It's great. It's the same thing for Jetline, Blue Airline. They work all the change in the industry of airline in US was changed like yours in a back of napkin in a restaurant in Texas. I'm going to send you
Well,
later. Great.
appreciate that.
And Mike, another. Uh, we had history of the direct marketing happening in the in century 16, but Aaron Montgomery Ward, he was considered one of the father of direct marketing 1872. And then let me bring another. We have Robert and Kate Kansbaum were pioneer in database marketing using technology. And then after that, we have Pepper and Martha create the concept of one-to-one. And last year, in the February, I interviewed Mary Alexander from California, who created the concept of customer success, inventive CRM company. In your opinion, after all those inventions for business world, do you think what more is missing to create a perfect relationship between company and customer? We start direct marketing, database marketing, CRM, one-to-one, customer success. What is missing?
You know what's missing? Again, I'm an older guy, Heverton, so some people may not agree with me. We have lost touch with people. We've created digital relationships. We have allowed, because of the ease that technology has provided us, to still understand the baseline importance and value of authenticity, a real relationship that's based on more than just making a sale. Here's one of the principles that I'd be talking in sales school that I said there were many that created what was in my mind, obviously, and that contributed toward the creation of ACT and the CRM industry. So in sales school one day, the instructor said to us, so when you contact somebody, what is your goal? Well, we thought, well, we're smart IBM sales trainees. Our goal is to convert them from being a prospect to a customer. We thought, well, that's the right answer. And after everyone kind of said the same thing, the instructor said, you are all wrong. You are missing the boat. You will never achieve the height of sales that you all have the potential to achieve. When you call on somebody, especially that first time, and today, Heverton, to kind of answer your question, there are many different ways you can attempt to contact somebody, right? Back then, there was the phone, and there was knocking on the door, a cold call. Yes, you could write a letter, you could do those kinds of things, but they were simpler than today's complicated avenues of trying to reach somebody. But it doesn't matter. What is the principle upon which you're attempting to contact somebody? And here's the principle that I believe in, and I have the success of ACT and 40 million users to prove it.
Yeah.
And I say that very humbly, by the way. They said, you do not want at first meeting where informed trying to get them to become a customer, because they're just going to hold you back. You need to approach them as if you wanted to become friends with them. You saw them as a friend. Now they said, now keep in mind, we know that the person's not thinking of you as a friend. That's not the point. The point is you need to treat them as if you wanted to establish a friendship with them. Because think of your own personal lives, right? My personal life. When I meet people at a social event, having nothing to do with business, and I meet somebody and we hit it off. There's a real connection. There's a pleasure in talking to them. I treat them differently. I act differently. I'm more relaxed. I'm more authentic. I'm more genuine. I'm more interested in them. That continues to bind together two people that have the potential to create anything. Like I said, Pat and I met simply because we moved 2 doors apart from each other and we became friends. And look what 2 friends accomplished. We created a global industry out of desperation. You have no idea how far relationships can take you. And here's a principle that I apply and often include in my public speaking. Henry David Thoreau said, as to, how does it go? It's been a while since I said it. As to principles, no, I'm sorry. I have I'm going to have to try to remember it because I want to get it right. It's very important. There's a difference between principles and techniques.
See.
Right. And basically he said, the person that as to techniques, there are a million and then some, but as to principles, there are very few. But the man who embraces principles can select his own techniques. The man who uses techniques, avoiding principles, is sure to have trouble. Yeah. So I think we've lost the basis of principles of relationships. And now, as we all know, social media, you can destroy people's lives and you never even knew them. You don't even know them, or they don't know you. And so we live in a very different world, and it's unfortunate in many respects. But as far as a livelihood and a life of integrity, both business and personal, it's all about being honest with people, being yourself, treating them like you would like to be treated. I mean, these aren't mystical things, Heverton.
Yeah. I agree with you. But for me, for example, I was an IT professional, not happy until 1999. I started in IT in 1986. But in 1999, in Brazil, I found out the concept of CRM and software. I work for with Vantive PeopleSoft. Then my career improved because I got a passion to work with a sales team, marketing team. Then I decided to continue my career. Not so boring that I was, because just develop a system. And what happened is that is your fault. Now in LinkedIn, we have almost 80 million professionals working with CRM, with industry that you create 80 million. So you are responsible for that, okay? 80 million people, professional around the world in LinkedIn, just LinkedIn, working with CRM. And then we have the last version of the Magic Quadrant of Gartner CRM, that we have an industry of $43.7 billion around the world, estimate 47 billion in that year. So you put this value in the marketing, you create 80 million. Because it's the main concept, but for sure, if we put together CRM, customer success, and customer experience, is almost triple this number of professional in LinkedIn. So could you imagine your invention could change the world of the business?
No, you cannot. And I won't pretend to say that we did. We did know that there were a lot of people that would find it useful. So we did think that there was a big market, but we weren't so far seeing or visionary that we knew that it was going to change the world and create a multi-billion-dollar industry. I'm just thought of something to go back to answer your question a little bit further on the
Okay.
value of principles. Remember, I told you that IBM taught us treat people like a friend, right?
Yeah.
So this happened when I was working for IBM still, long before ACT. Here's what happened one day. So it was a Friday afternoon. I was in my territory going home. I was driving by a big building, a huge corporate building, and I thought, well, maybe they need a mainframe computer. I was, after all, a cold calling salesperson for IBM. I went in, I respectfully talked with the executive assistant to the CEO. Remember, they said always call at the top. She asked for my business card, and the CEO came out. I introduced myself. Hi, Mr. Smith. My name is Mike Muhney, your IBM salesperson. You know, the key word was your. Like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to make you more successful, whatever. I'm your IBM salesman. And I started to talk to him, and he said, Mike, he looked at his watch. He said, Mike, I would love to hear what IBM is doing in my industry, but I'm leaving tonight with my family for a skiing trip in Colorado for 2 weeks. Feel free to contact me when I get back. Well, that was an invitation, right? When I walked back out to my car in my day timer, my paper activity book, 3 weeks later, I wrote down two things. I wrote down the name of his executive assistant, and I wrote down, ask him how his skiing vacation went. That doesn't seem very, difficult, right? In fact, to me, it was quite natural. I wanted to know, when I called, I was going to get her on the phone. I didn't want to say, hi, this is Mike Muhney from IBM. I wanted to say, hi, Joanne, this is Mike Muhney from IBM. How are you? Anyway, so I wanted her name and then ask him the question. So I did call 3 weeks later. He finally got on the phone. Hi, Mr. Smith, this is Mike Muhney from IBM. Oh, hi, Mike, how are you? Well, I'm fine, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, how was your skiing vacation?
Oh,
there was
great.
a few seconds of silence. I mean, I'm telling this story, 40 years later, right? That's how big an impression it had on me that led to inventing CRM, inventing ACT. There was a moment of silence, and then he said, you're probably a pretty smart guy working for IBM. You can safely assume that your competitors have called on me since I've gotten back. In fact, Mike, you're the last guy to contact me since I've gotten back. Now, I'm on the phone. I don't see his body, right? And I'm thinking to myself, oh, no, I lost the opportunity. They beat me to the punch. But this is what he then said. But do you know, even though you're the last one to contact me, you're the only one that asked me how my skiing vacation went. What that tells me is that you are a professional. You paid attention to me. I was important enough for you to write down and remember, because it's important that I get what I want, is, for my company. And you're the kind of person that I like to do business with. So yes, let's have that meeting. And the end of the story is this, Heverton. I did end up selling him an IBM solution. That is not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is this. I didn't know that there were 12 other competitors he had talked to, 12, right? I didn't know what his criteria was to select any of us. I didn't know any of this. What I did know was something personal about him, because I took that, I want to be a friend. I want to appear to take a friendship approach and a friendly approach with him. And in his mind, that's what made the difference. As a result of that experience, let me say at this point, this is going to sound kind of ironic, I don't believe in CRM. I don't believe in CRM. Why don't I believe in CRM? Because in fact, it is not about relationships. There is something more important that determines the quality of your relationships and therefore the success. Obviously, I do believe in CRM, but what I'm saying is there's an underlying principle before you even get to relationships. And that principle is this. It should stand for customer reputation management. Everything is about my reputation. The way I treat people will determine how I'm spoken about in the world. And again, with today's digital world, the way we're spoken about can travel fast and far, just like that, right?
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
to guard my reputation on how you perceive me, because how you perceive me and how I treat you in that perception determines how you talk about me. And everybody would like referrals for their business. Those are the easy sales when you get a referral. Well, people can say bad things about you. I'm sure you and your listeners, at least once in their life, have mentioned the name of somebody or asked about somebody with one of your friends, and they would say, don't do business with them. Stay away from them. They're not trustworthy, and they'll go down and lead you away, right? As opposed to Mike is a man of his word. He treats me with respect. He does more than I ask. In fact, there's no traffic jam on the extra mile with Mike Muhney. You can count on him. Okay. That's what I want. So everything I do, Heverton, is about guarding and strengthening my reputation. And with that, I go out with confidence, with authenticity, and I make relationships happen. You have to learn how to make relationships.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you said this because your talk make me remember one one another IBM sales guy that I interview here. His name is Augusto Pinto. He was
Mm-hmm.
he has the same feeling or energy like yours. He was responsible to bring for Brazil the SAP system, SAP system, and bring Sibel CRM for Brazil. It has the same behavior of yours, attitude. But he learned this in IBM too.
Yeah,
He said it to IBM was his school about how to
it was.
sales, how to take care of the customer. That's very interesting in school.
Yeah,
Great.
no, I still in my one of my courses called the STAR system, how to be a star. Every letter stands for something, STAR. Who doesn't want to be a star? Um, I really teach these principles that IBM taught me because they are universal. It doesn't matter what kind of technical world we live in, whether there's technology or no technology. They're universal principles, and they're laws, basically laws of principles of human relationships. And I teach that because with that you have a greater chance of success. And who doesn't want to be successful in life? Everybody does, obviously, but you have to earn that success, and you have to know how to do it as a professional.
Yeah. And it's very interesting that you bring about the information, behavior, attitude beyond with your customer. But during the now in the last, I said that no, everybody who knows me knows that in the last 10 years we have as technology guy, project manager guy, marketing guys, we are facing some problem to put who the customer belong to who for marketing, CRM, data warehouse, big data, whatever, Internet of Things, channels. But sometimes what happened in the company is like a MMA fighting because in the department they want to have the customer for their own, but the customer they don't. The customer see the company like as one, not as department. How to your smart your training of star or you see the CRM concept process technology how to make peace in the company you bring for to, to offer a good customer experience a good customer success how to balance this okay not just regard CRM as you said I agree with you about how to bring a good foundation for long term don't matter if the customer is with a marketing technology channel because the customer see the company as a body not just as a piece.
No, I agree. Let's not forget that when we think of customers, I think the default assumption is we're thinking of people outside our company that we're selling to. We're selling our product or service to. Let's not forget that a customer can also be one of the employees in my own company in another department that I've got to work with, and I have to win their favor and work with them in a friendly relationship in the same fashion as we do to try to get outside people. Yes, we have to work as a team. Obviously, you cannot achieve so many things by yourself. We're dependent on other people. I do think that sales, obviously, I've always felt this way, and I always will. Those are the people at the forefront of representing the company to the outside world. But I have to have reliable, dependable, unified other departments' resources to assist me in engaging that customer, so the customer sees me and everybody else in my company as one valuable resource. Obviously, a customer learns over time, hey, my product broke down. It's not working. I know I need to call the service department. I don't need to call Mike, who sold me that machine, right? I might let Mike know, but I need to call service. Well, so obviously that information goes to the appropriate people. That information feed, though, needs to come back so that we're aware of it. One of the future ways I think CRM can improve, and in fact, I am working on it right now as I speak with another CRM entrepreneur, a person younger than me who has engaged me to work with him. We're beginning to plan the release of a product, is to engage the customer on a back end, a two-way CRM. Okay, I mean a true two-way CRM where there is immediate feedback rather than me taking a lot of notes from my visit with you, Heverton, that is shared inside the company. Well, what if I mistakenly misperceived what I'm now telling everybody in the company? What if instead I allow the customer to engage in his own note-taking in a single encapsulated system that we share, right? There's obviously much more to this, but what I'm saying is if you engage the customer and they know real time what you're thinking about them and they can contribute, you're wrong, or I need this, whatever, then you can quickly fix any problem, you can promote, you can get further along and lock in that customer better when they're engaged with you. They have a vested interest. CRM systems, for the most part, don't do that. There's a lot of problems with CRM systems. First of all, it's internal to my company only. CRM systems don't like to share information out. Okay, I understand it, but that not necessarily is a good thing. The other thing is CRM never truly has complete information. Why? Yeah. And I was a career sales guy, right? I know the game. Salespeople know that their true value is the information that they have. If I tell everybody in my company what I know, then I don't have any value. They can fire me because they know everything that I know. So therefore, in a CRM system, I'm going to put in as much information as I need to keep management off my back. Well, that means that CRM, as good of an intention as it has, doesn't necessarily ever achieve what it was designed to help. So we go back to the attitude of the relationships, the way people treat each other inside my company, that will determine the higher value of a CRM system, most of which fail, as we all know. Gartner, almost on an annual basis, says 50% of CRM systems fail. 50% fail on multi-million-dollar investments? How could that happen? It happens because of poor or no relationships. That's why I'm talking about reputation and relationships, attitudes.
I completely agree with you, and it brings the next question, because as I told you, when I interviewed Mario Alexander from Inventive Software, who when he created the concept Inventive Software, he said, I just bring as my female intuition. I'm going to ask the customer, you are satisfied with my product? You are satisfied with my software? Because if you're not satisfied, why we are going to pay? So with that in mind, I bring these two ladies for you. You are professional speaker focusing on element of real relationship essential to sales and success, and versus illusion of relationship. I think the next generation of product has to bring a female intuition relationship, more think about caring, not just sales. What do you think about this?
Well, I'm not quite sure. That was my wife and my daughter, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
because
thank you for showing that.
Yeah, how to bring female intuition for the software industry, or because you see, we always sales. Then Mary Alexander asked, "They are satisfied with my product?" We need more female intuition for the software or industry.
No, I totally agree. We obviously have to make certain assumptions about business. We have to understand our market. We have to understand the segment of the market that we're trying to appeal to. Get all that.
See, but you always. I studied about you. You make you remember about relationship to not sales and success versus illusion of a relationship. I like this your comment about this.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of social media. It's the illusion of relationships on Facebook. And I'm really not a Facebook fan. I have a Facebook name, obviously, most people do. But the fact that they say that these are friends, they're not friends. I don't even know these people. I never will know them. Nobody's asked me for a cup of coffee. Nobody said, "Hey, can we arrange to talk on the phone so I can get to know you a little bit better?" All we are doing today is promoting ourselves rather than trying to understand people that I can help. Zig Ziglar said, if you help somebody with their problems and achieve their success, then you will succeed, right? He said it more eloquently than I did. But the point is, if you help people solve problems, you will be successful. My job is to help people solve their problems. Social media is all about me. Watch me, vote for me, like me, et cetera, et cetera. Well, real relationships are not about me. Real relationships are about you. My job is to learn more about you and to treat you more closely than other people competing for business. We all have to make a living. There's nothing wrong with selling. It's how you go about selling and what's the best means by which you can be more successful selling. It always comes back to reputation and relationships. I don't care what you say, I'm going to bring you back to reputation and relationships.
It's very interesting because we talked about the software. We talk about some concept of this, since direct marketing, database marketing, concept of technology. And one of my last book I wrote last year, because to facilitate for the big company or small company to understand where my start point. For example, my last book, I identify 20 methodology around the world to create good relationship between company and customer. There are just 20, and it's still running, it's still having problems in the relationship. So my point is, okay, we are, as I got if I can get a small conclusion, okay, we have process, software, concept, but always you have to focus on your relationship, in people, how to understand. Maybe if you don't have a software, use paper, napkin in the supermarket. But you have to focus and pay attention. That makes sense, something like that?
No, it does. One of the difficulties that I see, Heverton, and I'm not pretending to have the answer. I'm just letting you know. I'm not pretending to have the answer.
We are discussing
I do see a particular problem. So going back to that story that I told you when I was an IBM salesman and remembering to ask the CEO about his skiing vacation, right? There were only me and the 11 other competitors that knew he went on a skiing vacation as far as outside company people. Today, I can put on my Facebook page that I went to Rio de Janeiro, right? And I went to all these places, and I remember when I did go to Rio, one of the guides to the statue of Jesus,
Yeah.
said, "You know why Jesus's arms are so wide?" He said, "Because there's so much inflation here in Brazil." Right? That's what he said.
Yeah.
It's so big. I will never forget that. But anyway, in an instant, everybody now can know that I went to Brazil. So if you now call me up and say, "Hey, Mike," or you write me, people don't even answer their phones anymore. If you write me on social media or an email and say, "You know, I know you went to Brazil, right? I liked what you wrote." Well, everybody knows I went to Brazil. So you are not standing out yet. You have not differentiated yourself, because what that CEO did was, by me asking that question, he eliminated competition. He put them over in the unprofessional area, and he said to me, "You are a professional. You're over here," right? And that distinguished us. Well, now it's harder to distinguish yourself against competition, right? So how do you do that? And that's the big question that CRM today and going forward has to solve. How can I differentiate myself, since we all have access to virtually all information about people? I mean, it was funny, but you showed a picture of my wife and my daughter. Look at how information is out there.
Yeah.
Anybody can get that, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, now somebody else shows me that same picture. Well, now you're the same. You're both the same. You both, okay, so I have a wife and a daughter. Right? I have other children too, but that was a picture of them. But the point is, you haven't yet stood out. How do you stand above people? You've got to, it's a small step, one at a time, right? When we start a foot race, we all start out like this, but over time, one little bit at a time, one person gets further along than everybody else. And it's in the detail, the follow-up, the dependability, the keeping your word, the admitting when you're wrong, the helpfulness when you didn't need to be helpful. All of those little steps along the way lead to advancing yourself beyond everybody else. There is no quick fix to sales. If it's a quick sale, it can be a quick loss, right?
Yeah.
Real relationships should be sustainable. I'm not talking about going into a hardware store to buy a box of nails.
Yeah.
That's a one time quick. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, why should I go back to this department store or this company versus their competitor? It's always because of the people. It's always because of those little things. Here's a question I ask people, Heverton, when I speak in audiences. If I were to say to you, raise your hand, and I'm saying to your listeners right now, so I'll try to picture them, okay? But I have said this in front of hundreds and thousands of people in audiences I've spoken to, and it never fails. They all get it wrong. So here's the question. Raise your hand if you think this is a true statement. Little things mean a lot. Well, how can you argue with that? And everybody raises their hand. Yeah, every little thing's a lot. And I look at them and I say, you are all wrong. You're all wrong. Why are you wrong? You know what the end word should be. In fact, I'm going to ask that question, or I'm going to make that statement again, but I'm going to let you complete the last word. So here we go again. Little things don't mean a lot. They mean everything. Little things mean everything, not just a lot. They mean everything. Oh, yeah, you're right. So you see how people, you see how easily, Heverton, we as people, we take things for granted. We look for the easy way. We think we understand. We think we know. Yeah, little things mean a lot. Yeah, my job as an IBM salesman is to convert a prospect to a customer. Those are wrong assumptions. You have to understand there's no traffic jam on the extra mile. What are you doing to go there?
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah. What was your worst and the best customer experience you had in your life? You don't need to say the name of the company. Okay. What was the worst?
Well, I'm so old, Heverton. I mean, I'd have to think back across 50 years of being in business, right?
Or you can say the good one you prefer.
My worst experience, as a collective statement, my worst experiences were where I ultimately let people down. I'm a human being. I'm not perfect. Did I mess up? Did I screw up? Sure. But I learned from it. It impacted me, and I tried to not do those kinds of things. So my disappointments in life are those opportunities that I let slip away because of my own attitude, my own neglect, my own arrogance. We all have a sense of arrogance. I mean, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
My greatest success, I have to point back to those two Johns I told you about. Those two Johns changed my life. Now, I would include IBM sales training, and those two Johns that validated everything that was raw material in me, right? They helped refine me. They helped drive me further. They helped me create. I wasn't going to do that on our own. Like I said, Pat and I were going to give up. We were prepared to give $15,000 back, but they believed in us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when you recover now the name of the John, it made me you bring something like, oh, John, you were not customer of the John, but he apply with you a supplier CRM, supply it's like a new acronym SR, supplier relationship manager. He take care of you within. He take care with about you with a simple human being. He improve your life. Yeah.
Right. With his encouragement, with his encouragement, with
without
his money.
need, without need. Yeah. He improve your.
Yeah. So
Good.
if we look from a sales standpoint, what is the greatest sale that you made? It was the sale to those two Johns that we had a good idea that could help people be better. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and now just to start the end of the interview, talk about this start program that you help business understand to achieve not only excellent but relationship and reputation. How you drive this training, how it's going.
Yeah.
If people want to hire you in the long term or short term.
Yeah, so the STAR program is a 4-step program. Each letter, S period, T period, A period, R period, star, and again, it's like, who doesn't want to be a star? Who doesn't want to have the star light down shining on them? I want to help people see the light and be exposed to it against a backdrop that is now blacked out, right? So standing alone. So there is one component under the S that begins the star. So every letter has components to it. So the S letter has one important fundamental criteria upon which the second step, the T, has 2 steps, because steps lead to other steps. Right? So this is the first step that leads to the T that has 2 steps. And now the combination of the S and the T lead to the A of star, STA, and A has 3 more steps. And those 6 steps now lead to the R, which has 4 steps. So it's a stair-step process of walking the path toward becoming a star. And the end result of achievement of those 4 elements of the R lead back to a further reinforcement of the S, but now at a much higher level. So it's component stair-step based, as a general answer to your question.
Yeah, if people want to hire you, if people would like to hire you, just visit your website, right?
Yes.
Great. Now, last question for you, Mike. If God decides to hire you for a new challenger or mission, what mission would you like to receive from God?
Oh man, I I wish I could go back in time and have the value of the youthfulness that, you know, sometimes it takes, although at any age you can be creative. I get that. But I wish I had more time, and I wish I had more time to spend with more people as life progresses. So my mission would be, God, let me live a whole lot longer so that I can enjoy people that I've taken a lifetime to establish really quality relationships with. I know that sounds funny, but I'm obviously a relationship guy. The only thing that matters at the end of the day, and obviously as you get older, and I'm there, is your family. I mean, family is everything. Your friends, your inner circle of friends, the people, you know, Jim Rome, who, if there's any Jim Rome fans out there, you know, basically said that the 5 people that you surround yourself with are going to determine the kind of person you are, right? And so I always seek to maintain the quality of relationships I have with family and true friends, real, proven friends, but I also try to continue to expand that. And that's just an ongoing delight that I have, but I don't have as much time left to do that.
Yeah, but I think my intuition, when you said that, my intuition said for me, but God said to me, but I sent John and 3 guys with money to provide Mike long time ago.
Yeah, so, you know, it's like Steve Jobs said, I really, at the end of the day, Heverton, I do think that I think more people have ability inside of them that they don't yet realize. I truly believe that one of your first questions to me was, how did I see my future when I was a young man? I never saw myself as a software entrepreneur. Okay, I was a software entrepreneur, but we created a product that I never imagined would do what it did. A lot of people write software and it doesn't go anywhere, right? Our first product didn't go anywhere, right? So it's not necessarily what you do, it's that drive within you to just, but I've got to get more, I've got to realize more of what I really am. I mean, I'll finish with this story, if you will. This is another story of the actor. So
please,
how did the name ACT even happen? Here's how it happened. I told you I have a finance degree. That has nothing to do with marketing. That has nothing to do with sales. It was finance to be a finance lawyer, right? Buy and sell big buildings. That's the kind of lawyer I want to be, right? Very boring. I'm glad I didn't become a lawyer.
Thank goodness.
Right? Thank God, yeah. So in that era, we were it was getting close to where we were going to put Yes, the code name Yes, into beta. And once after beta, we had to release a product. Well, we had to come up with a name. What are we going to call this product? So we checked with some various companies around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as we did back then. There was no internet, right? And one of the companies that we did like, we liked the people, we liked the company, we liked the reputation, but this is what they said. We can come up with some names, but it's going to cost you $20,000. That's our fee, $20,000. It's like, well, if we have to do it, we'll do it. But Pat and I said, you know what, let's not worry about it right now. And we kind of put it under the rug. I was up in New York City talking with, I was up there for a whole week, meeting with various CEOs and venture capitalists and other people in the publishing industry who were going to write articles about this later, establishing relationships. I was at lunch with the CEO of a company, and the only thing that they sold were these new things called laptops. They sold Toshiba, NEC, Zenith, Sharp. They sold laptops to companies in New York City.
Yeah.
That was the laptop and ACT were perfect marriage, right? Because relationships are mobile. I mean, I don't care if I have my spreadsheet with me or not. And anyway, and we were at lunch, and on a Friday, I was getting ready to fly back home to Dallas-Fort Worth that night. And he said, so what are you going to call your product? And I said, I don't know, Peter. And he said, well, you better hurry up, because didn't you tell me you've got to create, brochures and the packaging and get the logo? And yeah, you're right. So when I went to LaGuardia Airport on Friday night, a 3.5-hour flight back to Dallas, I said to myself, just me, I challenged myself. I said, I'm going to see if I can come up with a name. I might not, but I'm going to see if I can. and I set 3 criteria for myself. Number 1, if I could come up with a name, I wanted it to start with an A. Why? To be first in the list, an alphabetical list. Number 2, I would like it to be 1 syllable if possible, because 1 syllable is easy to remember rather than 2 or 3 syllables, right? I mean, Salesforce is 3 syllables.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could think of 1 syllable, people can remember better. And number 3, and I was just as serious about this one, if possible, I wanted it to be playful. I wanted to have a sense of fun.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's my criteria. So now then I went to, all right, where in Yes, if I showed you that site plan, that decision tree, where do I spend most of my time in Yes? Well, one of the menu items was the word action. And if I selected that action, that's where I could write a letter, make a whatever, phone call. Well, there's my A. Okay, I've got the letter A. Now, what words begin with the letter B that I can add that B to the letter A that'll make a word? I couldn't come up with any B word.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to C's. Is there a word that begins with C that I can add to the A to create a word, an acronym? Okay, so make a long story short, he said, well, what is the activity, the action menu help me to do? And I ultimately said, it helps me to control my activities, my relationships. And I saw the A control CT. So there was ACT, activity control, right?
Great.
And so when my wife picked me up at the airport, I told her this whole story. I came up with the name, blah, blah, blah. And she said, no, you should have a word for each of the 3 letters. So you should say it stands for Activity Control Technology, ACT, ACT. And we added the exclamation mark for the emphasis, the kind of do something, today in Nike says just do it, right? So the exclamation mark was a very dynamic, action-oriented word, no pun intended. And so I saved our company $20,000, and I don't have a marketing degree. The point is, everybody has more in them if they just dig deeper down. Some people don't even realize they have a reservoir of potential in them.
Yeah.
If they just give themselves some challenges and go for it and don't give up.
Yeah, no, great story. You're saving $20,000, and your wife put the control on you. Great.
That's right.
Mike, thank you very much. Okay, for your attention, your
pleasure.
time. I hope after that COVID, I bring you here in Brazil. We can make some business training, whatever. Let's see the future. God bless you and your family, okay? If you need something from Brazil, don't hesitate. And I invite everybody for next week. We are going to talk with Guilherme Rodrigues, a Brazilian guy who is responsible for the first, develop the first digital wallet for the biggest bank in Dubai, in Emirate. Emirate is a Brazilian who created the story there. And thank you very much. And I hope you see you next week. Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time very much. And Heverton, I look forward to further communications with you.
Okay, and invite you to know more about Mike in LinkedIn in his website below. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Pessoal, convido vocês também para conhecer meus livros na Amazon. Estão todos disponíveis na Amazon. E não se esqueçam, me adicione no LinkedIn, se inscrevam no canal e ativem notificações. E agora, vocês vão poder assistir essa entrevista com tradução simultânea no YouTube. Muito obrigado, fiquem com Deus e até semana que vem. Obrigado.